Welcome to the ACC Panic Room alongside Lauren Brownlow. I'm Joe Ovies, and happy April Fool's Day. Roy Williams decided to retire from college basketball, resigning from North Carolina today. Lauren, you were in Chapel Hill for the press conference. I'm sure it was still a is this really happening moment until they actually showed up on the podium and talked about retiring.
I mean, kind of. I had adjusted to it at that point, the reality of it all, but it was pretty surreal to be there for a press conference. I don't think I've ever been present for a retirement press conference. I
Ah,
don't remember that. I don't think that I have. So it's pretty, yeah. I mean, I knew it was kind of a historical moment. I wanted to be there in person if I could, and it's crazy. I was tweeting about it today. I've only ever covered one basketball coach at Carolina and one basketball and football coach at Duke as well.
yeah.
Duke's the only school that hasn't gone through the coaching search yet. So it'll be interesting to see how this one goes because Lord knows UNC's coaching searches have been an adventure when it comes to basketball historically.
So I'm still in shock that this
Yeah.
happened today.
Yeah.
We look, this is it's been one of these ongoing discussions with the way the season has gone. In fact, you actually kind of put me on blast today, which
Sorry.
I wanted to let's go ahead and share this because I thought it was
Oh
funny.
no. I'm
So
sorry.
I'll just go ahead and let's see. Here's the tweet. Let's just put this out here because why not, right? Yeah. So you decided to screen grab a text thread between you and me about this was when was this?
See?
This was after.
This was after the Carolina lost to Wisconsin.
Okay, so this is after the Wisconsin, and again, I had not been able to watch the post game press conference. I
Yeah,
remember
you didn't.
telling you
Yeah.
that he was highly emotional, but this it kind of piggybacked off the conversation about what Roy Williams did by kissing the Dean Smith Center floor after they had given Duke the business to end the regular season, and my Twitter timeline's freaking out, and everybody's speculating. You and I both know people. I had my phone was
Oh my
blowing up
God.
from people who should know better, and they were caught up in it. I had one of our friends who would sort of kind of know these things going, I don't know, man. I really do think there's something to this. And I said, come on, there's no way. There is no way that Roy Williams would, after a pandemic year that was so weird, would want this to be his last season. But he said something interesting today that changed my opinion on it. And it's the knowledge that the previous year, the Cole Anthony year, where they weren't going to make the NCAA tournament before the pandemic hit and the tournament was canceled, that took more of a toll on him than I was willing to believe,
Yeah.
and that he used a baseball reference. After 2 years of not having squads do the things that he wanted them to do like he was used to having it done, he didn't want to see the third strike.
Yeah.
And that's when he decided that was it. I thought that was fascinating. It made a hell of a lot more sense once he said that.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because he cited all these games, some of the close losses they'd had, in 2020, some of the close losses they had this year. And he was trying really hard to balance it out, but it was a weird sort of phenomenon in the sense that he's like, I mean, he's kind of saying that the reason he's retiring is because he couldn't get the team to do what he wanted them to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like this current team. I wonder if this season had gone differently, you know,
Mm-hmm.
if the season had gone a little differently. Maybe they lose a few fewer games, maybe they get a 60, maybe they play better offensively. I don't know. I mean, he still might have, but I think it was all cumulative for him, I think, at a certain point, because really since their national title, they have had good seasons. And he talked about that too. But,
Mm-hmm.
in the 2018 tournament, they got blown out in the second round. In the 2019 tournament, they got blown out in the Sweet 16. And that we're not used to seeing Roy's teams do that. And then for them to get back to the tournament, he thinks they're playing some of their best basketball, and then they get blown out in the first round. I
Yeah.
think just the cumulative effect of all of that, I think it left him kind of doubting himself. That was my impression after the Wisconsin game, was that he was doubting himself and whether or not he knew the right things to do for the team.
Well, two things about that. The first one, there were no more streaks to preserve, right? The Clemson streak was gone. That was eliminated last year. And then he lost a first round NCAA tournament game, right? That was the first time that's ever happened for him. So with no more streaks to preserve, what are we doing here, right? I'm slightly kidding on that one, but a lot of things that Roy was not used to having happen
A losing
happened.
season that had never happened.
Like those types of things will start to mess with you. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that this press conference, look, I knew that Roy Williams was going to be emotional because that is Roy Williams. He wears his heart on his sleeves. That's what makes him Roy Williams.
Yeah.
That is what makes him an uber competitor too. But I thought his he was unfair to himself, because if you only paid attention to today's press conference, you'd think that like all we're ever going to remember from Roy Williams was the last 2 seasons. But it shows you how athletes and coaches treat things. We think about the 3 championships. He remembers, and Gilio and I have actually witnessed this in conversations that we've done on the air, where he can sit here and give you this exact detail of moments that didn't go right for him too. And that stuff has eaten at him for a long time.
I think you're right. I think those moments did stand out more to him, but I also think the good ones were in the back of his memory too, because he knew it had worked before, right? And things weren't working the last couple of years. And I think that was part of it for him too, is like, okay, this isn't me. Like, this isn't as well as I can get a team to play. And then, the other part of it, and I thought this was interesting, it was kind of a side comment he made, but he did say that he'd been having trouble like remembering people's names. Oh. And that he met with Bubba at one point just to be like, you think I'm okay? And I forget who he's talking. It was Doug Moe, former Carolina player Doug Moe. And Doug Moe's like, I call all my grandkids you. Like, it's part of getting old. Like, it's just what happens. It's not. It doesn't mean that you're like not, coherent enough to coach. Like, and I thought that was interesting too. So I think, it's sort of like what he said. He's like, yes, I'm getting old. Yes, I'd like to spend time with my family. But at the end of the day, right, it's just that he doesn't feel like he can do the job as well as he was doing it before.
And he also wanted to keep doing it a particular way as well. This is a conversation that there was this attitude that I wanted to push back on, and that, the transfer portal and dealing with kids that are different these days. And, as much as he is like Dean Smith, he also didn't want to repeat all the things that Dean Smith did, right? That comes down to retiring too early. That was something that was a common theme today. But there was one commonality between Dean Smith and Roy Williams that maybe I underestimated as well, in that if it wasn't going to be the way he wanted to do it, then he didn't want to do it anymore. The same way that Dean Smith retired in 1997 because he got fed up with a lot of different things and players had changed. The same thing that happened to Roy. But that doesn't mean that all coaches are like that, because I look at Mike Krzyzewski as the other example of it. This is somebody that saw the game going in a particular way, and he chose to pivot and ended up turning this different era of Duke basketball around. Whereas with Roy Williams, I guess the lasting legacy is going to be the fact that he basically he had to rebuild the Carolina basketball family, right? And which gets used a lot. I know a lot of people will roll their eyes. But he decided that I'm going to do this a particular way, and then I'm going to go out my way too. Because if it's not going to work the way I want it, then I'm just going to go ahead and get out of here when it's time to get out of here. And that's what we saw today.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I mean, I think, honestly, I do believe him when he says that part of it is just that I think he's been really kind of shaken up by the fact that all this stuff has happened the last couple of years. And we always say it every single year with Carolina teams, don't we? We always are like, oh, they're going to start to turn it around. They're going to do X. They're going to do Y, because that's what Roy's teams have always done. And he knows that too, right? And so, like, the fact that that hasn't happened, I mean, I think that there's something to what you're saying about, like, some of that other stuff being stuff he doesn't want to do. But it's also, I mean, part of it too, though, is like, I mean, just look at this year. They're going to have to, like, go crazy in the transfer portal to find players.
Yeah, and some schools, but the thing is, there's going to be a lot of coaches who don't even like, I mean, we got to live that life all the time. I'm sorry that you have to deal with it. It was kind of like my attitude last week when everybody was freaking out about Walker Kessler. It's like, well, welcome to the party. Like, this is something that's been going on for a while. And that's what gets back to when Roy Williams says, I'm no longer the right person for this job, which he said several times today. Hey, look, I give him credit. At least he's honest with himself. He's honest with the program. And he loves Carolina so much that he doesn't want to keep it in the prehistoric age and not adapt with it. Again, some people are equipped to do that. Mike Krzyzewski has always been a little bit more brand conscious and willing to pivot. This kind of ties into things like his radio show and doing the business school and things like that. It's always been about what's next. Whereas Roy Williams had a particular way he wanted to go about things. So now the question is, what is next, right? So Roy Williams is going to be part of this rebrand or pivot for North Carolina in this new era. So now it's up to Bubba Cunningham, the AD, and the president, Kevin Gustowitz, to figure out who that person is going to be. I didn't have a chance to see the Bubba Cunningham Zoom teleconference. I know you did. Yeah. I kind of kept up with it on Twitter. And the impression that I got, I think the most telling thing was that they're not going to use a search committee, which tells me they know who they want. And it's just a matter of seeing if it's going to play out that particular way, and then they'll go to their backup. I don't think it's going to be a very long coaching search.
Yeah, and he sort of emphasized that as well, that he doesn't want this to be a long one because, like I said, like they've got to start getting going in the transfer portal. They've got to figure out who's going to stay and who's going to go now that this has happened. Like they've got a lot to do in not a lot of time at this point, and we've already seen some schools make hires already. And so, I think definitely it's like urgent that they do it now as quickly as they can. But that does make me wonder a little bit who. Bubba did sort of act like they didn't have a list, but I mean, they all have a list.
No, every AD has a list. And I also am not convinced that it's going to be a Carolina family guy who's at the top of their list right now. They might end up with somebody that way, but I don't think that's the person who's at the top of the list because Bubba Cunningham doesn't operate that way. He's a different AD than Dick Baddour. When Dick Baddour's sole job at that time was to get Roy Williams from Kansas. Now, we don't have to rehash how that all played out. I think most people can, if they don't remember it, go look at Wikipedia and it'll kind of detail all those timelines. But the key difference between that coaching search after the bridge from Dean Smith to Bill Guthridge to what was supposed to be Roy Williams, there's no obvious answer within the Carolina family right now. There are guys that some people believe in that they can be those coaches down the line, but there's no obvious choice. Roy Williams was already an established coach at Kansas, just hadn't won the big one yet with some loaded teams at Kansas. That's not Wes Miller. That's not Jared Haas. That's not some other names that have been thrown around that might have a tie to North Carolina. So it kind of goes in the direction of, do you risk taking a chance on, say, Hubert Davis, which is what Roy Williams has kind of intimated with some decision makings to bringing him on? Or if I'm Bubba Cunningham, I see Mark Few at Gonzaga, hope that he wins the title at Gonzaga to just kind of complete that mission, and then tell Few, hey man, you and Roy's are boys. You get this program because you get Roy. What do you want? And then that would be me.
I hear you. I think Mark's situation right now at Gonzaga is such that, I'm not saying he wouldn't do it, but I would be pretty surprised if he did because he's got a great gig right now. Like they're getting 5 stars. They got 5 stars now. And I mean, and this isn't hot taking Gonzaga because I still think they're excellent, but like they get to play in a league that, they're better than everybody else by a large margin. Whereas if he went to Carolina, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. I'm not saying he's not a really good coach. I think he is. But that would be interesting. I mean, listen, I would laugh very hard if this happens for like a lot of reasons, but Brad Stevens' situation in Boston is not super rosy right now. Like it's not. But how funny would it be if that actually happened? Like we've made all these jokes about it for years thinking it would never happen. It would be very funny. I would enjoy it because it would be hilarious.
Yeah, I think this is an example that we just saw play out with Archie Miller at Indiana. Some guys, you have to recruit a particular type of player and it's not going to work out for you. Brad Stevens was able to build something at Butler and then just from a coaching basketball acumen, just coach the best players possible in Boston. Plus the money's too good, right? But like we saw this play out with Shaka Smart, who just took the Marquette job. You get to a certain point, you got to play a particular game. It might not work out for you. And Archie Miller was in the same boat at Indiana. But it goes beyond those two names I just brought up. I mean, there's a lot of examples like this. Even in the ACC, for instance, I know Adam Gold and I used to talk about this all the time with Maryland, right? Like what happened to Gary Williams at Maryland? Well, he recruited a particular type of player that he knew he could max out. They won a championship. The expectations on who you could recruit changed. And then you started getting players he didn't like. Hey, Jay Wright went through this at Villanova, right?
Sure.
They've built this incredible program. It opens up doors. You start getting these types of recruits that you didn't have before. It doesn't necessarily work out for you because that's just not your temperament. And then they obviously Jay Wright and Villanova pivoted back to how things were. So I don't know if, I get that it's been this obsession ever since Butler, but I'm not quite sure I see that. I think Brad Stevens gets another job in the NBA. If things don't work out in Boston, because I think most people understand that the Celtics issues might be, beyond him. Oh, anyway,
look, I'm just throwing it out there.
I know. Besides, it's
did I just sports talk radio? Is that what I did?
Did I just sports radio? You didn't. Now all you have to do is take me out of context, and you're good to go.
Okay.
Then you're like just.
Roy says, or Joe Ovies says, Brad Stevens can't coach at Carolina.
Boom. There you go. There's your headline that you put on WRLSportsFan.com. Besides, I thought Brad Stevens was going to coach at Duke. How is he going to coach at two places at once?
But that was always the joke with Shaka and Brad, like for so long for both those programs. It's like one of them will hire Brad, one of them will hire Shaka.
What happened?
No, it's just fun. I mean, I just think they'd be wise to think outside the box. I wish for Wes Miller's sake that he'd had a couple more years at another school, like a step up a bit.
Well, let me ask you this as it relates to somebody like Wes Miller. Do you think that Carolina should go with a bridge hire, so to speak? Somebody,
right?
And I don't know who that would be.
That's the thing.
And then you wait for the other coach to get more seasoned or whatever it is. But or which I think is a dumb idea.
Yeah.
If you believe in a coach, if you believe he's the guy, then you get him in there and then you let him cook for a long time.
Right.
Basically, if you're the Tar Heels, do you Pittsburgh Steelers it, so to speak? Like, I mean, the reason why Matt Doherty didn't work out was because he lit a torch to everything that Dean Smith had built up and pissed off a bunch of Carolina people. But if you bring somebody in who gets it and you give them time to grow into the job for the long haul, well, then why wouldn't it be somebody like Wes Miller, right? But because he's gonna be a popular name, and he's the type of guy that you're just gonna have to give a long time to. I think that's the thing that is gonna be the most difficult part of this job search. If you believe in a younger coach who does not have that much experience, then the fan base has to be comfortable with the fact that there's gonna be some growing pains with that coach.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I just think it'll be. I mean, because there are definitely some guys stylistically that I think would fit well. But like Nate Oates just signed a big contract extension. But he plays an up-tempo style that's a little more, quote unquote, in the modern era, which I think is something Carolina fans would be comfortable with. But I do think Wes is a good coach. I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to go with it. I mean, Bubba was pretty cryptic, as you would expect, and didn't really,
of course,
he said we'd like them to have head coaching experience, but it's not a requirement. Blah, blah, blah. Right. So who knows? Yeah. I mean, there's really no telling. Lord knows we got the retirement so wrong, both of us, that like, I don't know that I'm about to like go get on a hill and start proclaiming my coaching.
I think most people got this wrong.
Yeah.
I think that we gave Roy Williams a lot of credit for his competitive nature, that we didn't believe that this was going to be the reason why he retired. But good for him. I bring this up to say, like, he's aware enough of what he wants and everything else that he knew when it was time to go. And you can't say that about a lot of people. They know when it's time to go.
To vindicate you a little bit, though, he did not kiss the floor with that in mind. He said that today. He was asked specifically about it, so that was not on his mind.
Speaking of things that were on their mind, do you think that somebody should have over at Duke's social media account, like they've been doing this all week, like kind of reminiscing about their national championships and Final Four trips and stuff like that. So at 4:29 today, through I believe this was through either Hootsuite or Twitter Media Studio. Here we go. They do the first natty, Duke on this day in 1991. It's Kansas. Who was the coach?
Yeah, that was Roy. Oh my God, look at Jim Nance.
I know. Wow. Jim Nance was so young in this, right?
It's wild.
I don't think this was on purpose.
No, I don't either.
But was Roy Williams making an opt-out joke on purpose?
I don't think so either. Roy has his phrases that he thinks are silly, and I do not think that was on purpose. No. Okay. I really don't. Right. I mean, he mentioned Coach K a bunch of times as somebody he really loves and blah, blah, blah. I do think that's his opinion about he's like, just say what it is, which I get that too. Like that actually makes his earlier statements make a little more sense. He's like, just say it. That's what it is. Like that's the word that it is. Like you don't have to call it something else, And I don't think that was on purpose.
That's fine. No, that's fine. So one last thing to get to before we wrap it up on this Panic Room. How do NC State fans feel today?
They probably are thrilled. What do you mean?
I don't know. I don't know if they're thrilled today, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Whoever the next coach is at North Carolina, they're not going to get the NC State Carolina thing.
Yeah, I hear you.
I get the record. Roy Williams did a really, really good job whooping NC State's ass, and I'm sure there was a lot of NC State fans that were like, "Oh, thank goodness! Maybe this means that State will get a break going forward or whatever."
Right.
It is, all those reasons. But I think when you're removed from the immediacy of, "Oh, thank goodness this guy who's just crushed us since he's been here goes away, that's the last connection to what it used to be, right? Because the next coach is not going to get it. Roy Williams made it a point to have his players understand you beat them. He said things like, "I'd rather not eat,
rather beat state than eat." Yeah,
I'd rather beat state than eat, like those types of things. You're not gonna get that in the next guy, even if it's a young North Carolina, a Roy Williams protege like a Wes Miller or something like that. It's not going to be the same because Roy lived it.
I hear you.
This next person's not, and I think NC State fans are going to miss that.
I hear you. I think that element is not entirely wrong. Okay. However, I think they would rather their team beat Carolina more. Right. And Roy is a very big impediment to that, seemingly. So
that's a good point.
I'm just saying. I wonder, the state loss seemed to annoy him more than almost any this year. Yeah. I remember that. He was going on and on about that loss for weeks. And I think that's probably part of it. He hates losing to them. I think that, yes, they love that he hates them. They do love that about him. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's some part of them that will feel nostalgic for that. But no, at the end of the day, no, they want him out of there so that this doesn't happen to them anymore.
All right. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. Fun fact, I was not supposed to work today because got the second COVID shot.
Yeah.
You also got your second COVID shot. And I was out of precaution. It was one of those situations where, hey, look, I'm getting the shot. I know that the side effects can be all over the place. There's a variance to them. I don't know how it's going to affect me. So it was decided, all right, cool. Just don't worry about today. Come back Friday when you're all 100%. No big deal. So when this happened, what time did the press? What time did Steve Kirshner send out the press release?
It's 10 a.m.
10 a.m. So at 10 a.m. I feel fine.
I did too.
Thinking, oh man, I'm thinking if I can get to noon, I'll be good, right?
That's what I was thinking.
So so that email comes out, and I'm texting with our manager, and I said, well, look, I feel fine. I think it would be silly.
Oh no, you did it to yourself. I did it
to myself. I'm gonna come in today because Roy freaking Williams retired. I can't not be on the show the day Roy Williams retires, and I'm feeling fine. I jinxed myself.
See, and my problem too is that my husband is a pharmacist, and so he's been telling me that he's like, look, you can take pain meds, but it doesn't, it could interfere with how well the vaccine works. So now I'm working on nothing, no pain meds. I'm shivering. I've been trying to hide. I cannot.
Yeah, I took some I took some ibuprofen. If I got to deal with the little limited effectiveness, so be it. But I took some ibuprofen. But sure enough, at 3:30. I started to feel it. I actually did the show. I did the show in a puffy jacket with the thermostat up in the studio.
Oh my God. It was 12:30 for me that I started to feel pretty bad because I'm I guess I need to eat something. And I was I'm not even hungry right now because I'm so sore.
Yeah.
On my whole body.
Yeah. It's just, anyway, hopefully we'll turn the corner and everything will be all good. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. We'll see y'all. I don't know when. Unless I guess
maybe when they hire a coach.
When they hire a coach next week, why not, right?